day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, there ain't no stopping me. I ran up all these bands, surrender, and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, there ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands, up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands, up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands, up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands, up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands, up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands, up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up, it ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man, it ain't no
Testing 1 2 1 2. Are we here? Hold on, we might have some technical difficulties. Let me make sure we're good. Y'all give me 1 second. Okay, we're here. Hey, can I get a round of applause? We're in here. All right. What's going on, y'all? Appreciate everyone supporting the channel. As you come into the room, do me a personal favor. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button to support the channel because it's free. It's free and it boosts us in the algorithm. It gets the message out to more people. So be sure to hit the thumbs up button when you come into the room. Also, if it's your first time watching, do me a personal favor and smash the subscribe button. Smash the subscribe button for content just like this. We're talking about a wide range of topics, talking about a lot of different things, having an interesting conversation every day, almost every night. We got a lot of different conversations, a lot of things to talk about. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and come on back. All right. With that being said, we can get into tonight's topic. Tonight, you see the title, you see the thumbnail. We're talking about issues, the problem with the black church. Now, full disclosure, I like to give people a little bit of context and background information as far as why I chose this topic. Now, originally, I wanted to go into this topic and big up the church. As a YouTuber, someone who has to come on here and find different topics to talk about, find different conversations to host, I understand and I can relate to the pastor. The pastor of a church every week without fail has to come into the church and talk to the masses, talk to the people, talk to his congregation and give them some uplifting words, give them a message of hope, give them something that they can feed on and think about and contemplate throughout the week. And as a YouTuber, someone who myself has to come in front of the people and speak, I understand the difficulties. Sorry, someone's giving me a call. I understand the difficulties that a pastor might face when trying to keep the attention of a congregation. Not only that, I understand the interesting predicament a pastor is in, because here we have a relatively low overhead. You know, I had to put in a couple dollars for this microphone, for this computer. I had to put in a couple dollars for the Wi-Fi and internet, the electricity that keeps this house running, that keeps this YouTube channel up. But a pastor, someone who has a physical location in the church, has to keep the bills paid, has to keep the water in the church running, has to keep the electricity in the church running. He has a lot of economic, financial drains and financial demands on him and he's relying on his congregation to support him and his message in order to keep that church house open. So recently, the church has, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, has become a lot more of a business. See, in America, the black church was something that we were once proud of. It was an institution. It was an institution that we would use for organization, for organizing, for boycotting. Mind you, when you think about a lot of the revolutionaries, for example, Martin Luther King, for example, Malcolm X, for example, I forget his name, the man back in slavery who was a pastor, a black pastor, who led one of the most famous slave revolts. A lot of these folks used the church, used the word as a foundation, as a platform to build his organization, used that for public good. Leaning and going back to Martin Luther King, he was head of SNCC, the Southern Leadership Conference. He was the head of a church. He was a reverend, Dr. Martin Luther King. The church was really a place where we could unify and come together and push social change, push a social agenda on the foundation of Christianity. But there was a man by the name of Lyndon Baines Johnson who put an end to that. Lyndon Baines Johnson, with his Johnson Amendment, made the church impotent, non-powerful, dare I say useless, as it relates to the political agenda. All right, there was once a time where we would look up to our pastors and look for them for leadership. And we would look to heed their advice in a lot of these political and forming a political agenda. But those days are no more. Those days are no more. And tonight we're going to talk about it. Now, before we get into the problems, of course, you can always talk about the cons of the situation, but I'm more of an optimist. So before we get into the cons, let's talk about some of the positive things. To this day, as I opened up this conversation, I have a lot of respect and admiration for black pastors and the black church as a strong institution. Although the church today is dwindling, it's dwindling. People are no longer attending church at the rates that we used to. People have lost faith in the pastors and the direction that pastors are leading their congregation. We see that in the church, there's a lack of accountability. People are normalizing homosexuality in the church, which is in direct contravention and direct opposition to the word of God. So we see that there's really no structure. There's really no accountability. There's really no standard that the congregation is being held to, which leads a lot of the men to back off of it, because we say, hey, what's the point of coming to this place? Y'all are just talking about a bunch of platitudes. Oh yeah, there's hope in God and God loves you, but you're not giving us concrete direction. You're not giving us, hey, you need to show up and do this. You need to do A, B, and C, right? We no longer have an agenda where we can see forward movement. We can see progress. We can see SMART goals. Remember, on this channel, we push SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time constrained. We no longer see SMART. We no longer see goals at all coming from the church. But there are still some positives, especially when talking about the youth. One thing I like about the church, before we get into the cons, because I will get into the cons and I will talk about how we can correct some of these issues. But before we get into the cons and what we need to do to fix it, I want to give an olive branch to the churchgoers. I think that is a beautiful thing, the fact that the church is one of the only places in the black community where black people as a group can show up sober-minded, right? Because a lot of times when we congregate as black people, hey, what are you doing Friday night? What are you doing on Saturday? Let's go to the club. People are getting drunk, right? People are smoking, getting drunk. People are diluting their mental capabilities Friday, Saturday night. But on Sunday, if you choose to go to the church, you are able to congregate and surround yourself with a lot of times professional, educated, sober-minded families. You're able to see people with their kids and a sober mind, who are able to speak with you and are able to build with you. A lot of times you go to the church, if you need a home, if you are looking for housing, there's someone who might be able to plug you in with an apartment. Hey, my cousin owns this apartment building. Let me see if I can get you a place. I've got an extra room in my house. You can come stay with me for a few months until you get back on your feet. That's a beautiful thing. That is something that the church does deserve credit for. And I think that a lot of times the church doesn't get the credit that it deserves, because it is one of the few places in the Black community where people can show up and for an hour and a half with a sober mind, sit there and there be no confrontation. See, a lot of times when you're surrounding yourself with Black people, you might be going to the club, you might be going to sport events. You're surrounding yourself with people who are drinking and entertaining themselves with things that are non-productive. But the church is one of the few places where Black people are able to congregate. We're able to come together. We're able to come together with a common goal. Hey, we're coming to this church to listen to the leader preach. And hopefully, if the pastor is doing his job correctly, he's saying something constructive that we will be able to utilize and implement in our everyday life. That is a beautiful thing. That is what the church to this day is still able to provide to the Black community. However, the effectiveness of the church, the effectiveness of the pastor has been diluted. The pastors have been handicapped due to its status as a 501c3 organization. So if you're not familiar with the 501c3 organization, let's get into it. First, we're going to start off with this article. And of course, we've got some clips that we're going to play as always. But let's get into these articles first, because I've got to explain what a 501c3. I know I've got kids on this channel. I've got kids who watch me. I've got people of all ages, kids, adults, but some people don't know. Some people don't know about the Johnson Amendment. Some people don't know what a 501c3 organization is. So let's go to the IRS.org. All right, now this is coming from IRS.org, and the headline reads, "Restriction of Political Campaign Intervention by Section 501c3 Tax-Exempt Organizations." This is what churches fall in under. Churches are able to collect those tithes and offerings. They're able to collect that money, and they don't pay any taxes on it because they are considered 501c3 tax-exempt organizations. But hey, there's a catch. Here's what comes along with that. The very first sentence on the IRS website reads, under the Internal Revenue Code, all Section 501c3 organizations are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. So a lot of times you won't see your pastors talking about the current presidential candidates that are running. Forget presidential candidates on a local level. These are local organizations. People, grandmas and mothers and families come into church week after week. These could affect local politics if the pastors were not handicapped by this 501c3 organization, by this 501c3 regulations. But they are prohibited, absolutely prohibited, from directly or indirectly participating in political campaigns. The article goes on to read, contributions to political campaign funds, or, here's the important thing, or public statements of position, verbal or written, made on behalf of the organization in favor of or in opposition to any candidate for public office clearly violate the prohibition against political campaign activities. Violating this prohibition may result in denial or revocation of tax-exempt status and the imposition of certain excess taxes, which means if your pastor does begin to speak too politically, if your pastor does begin to influence its congregation and on behalf of any political party or any political lane or avenue, they are risking their 501c3 tax exempt status. They can be revoked, adding an extra layer of financial strain on the church. Certain activities or expenditures may not be prohibited depending on the facts and circumstances. For example, certain voter education activities, including presenting public forums and publishing voter education guides, conducted in non-partisan manner, meaning you can't sway people either way. You cannot have any significant sway on their congregation, which means the pastor largely just puts their hands up and says, hey, I'm not going to touch it. It's already might alienate some of my congregation because some of my congregation might be Trump supporters. Some of my congregation might be Kamala supporters. And if I speak one way or the other, not only do I risk losing my tax exempt status under the 501c3 laws, but I also might alienate the churchgoers who may or may not agree with my particular stance. So the churches, the pastor in particular, decides, hey, I'm just going to keep things neutral. When I'm going to preach, I'm going to preach on things that are everyone can agree with. Things that are not controversial. Hey, Jesus loves you. You agree, right? You agree? All right, everyone agrees Jesus loves you. Hey, let's all shake hands, hug, and go home. Right? They talk about things that largely do not influence your life. That's basically what they do. They want to give you a message that everyone can agree with. They don't want to risk alienating anybody. See, on this channel, I say a lot of things that are controversial. I pride myself on touching the topics that most people don't want to touch. I talk about things like reparations. I say the word reparations, I see my subscriber count go down by 5. Every time I say the word reparations, boom, I see my subscriber count go down. But that's okay, because I'm here spitting what I believe to be true, whether you agree with or not. Whether you agree with reparations or not, on this channel, I'm going to be here talking about reparations all day. All day I support reparations, whether you like it or not. And if I find a candidate who supports reparations, you better believe I'm going to highlight that candidate, and I'm not going to shy away because this is a 501c3 organization. It is not. It's not a 501c3 organization, so I get to say whatever I want. Now, on this channel, I also have a Bible in the News segment. Anyone can feel free to go back, check out my Bible in the News playlist, where I do touch on biblical teachings, where I do talk about the significance of dreadlocks in the prophets. Go read the Bible, and you go check out my playlist where I talk about the fact that everyone wants to point to Samson, but what about Samuel? What about Samuel? What about a lot of Elijah? The prophets were set aside from birth, and the way that they were set aside from birth was the fact that a razor never touched their head. Look at the law, the vow of the Levites. I break this stuff down. The law, the vow of the Levites, where for 7 years no razor shall touch your head. Right? I talk about biblical teachings. I talk about Revelations, the book of Revelations, the seal of God versus the mark of the beast. Check out that video. I talk about biblical teachings as well. But because I'm not tax exempt, I'm able to say whatever I feel on my heart. And the people who appreciate it, the people who agree, like Salute G Rap, the people who agree are able to come on and support me, and the like minds attract like minds. And if you don't like it, hey, you're welcome to go on to another channel, right? So Salute G Rap, folks saying like, you spitting, yeah, because that's what I'm able to do. I'm able to tell you my true thoughts. Whereas the pastors, thanks to this 501c3 organization, they are handicapped, they are handcuffed and prevented. They're stopped. They are stopped from speaking about anything politically relevant, right? So now they're starting to, sorry, one second. So now they are told, okay, you've got to keep your message neutral. We don't want to offend anybody. Not only are we not going to talk about politics, we're not going to talk about what the word says as far as homosexuality. We're not going to talk about what the word says as far as the man being the head of the household. When's the last time you went to church and heard the pastor say, hey, women, obey your husbands as the church submits to the Lord? When's the last time you heard the pastor say something like that? Huh? I'll wait. Let me get comfortable because I'm starting to rock here. When's the last time you heard the pastor direct the women, the wives of the congregation, to obey? That word, obey, submit. Woo, those are some dirty words. Obey your husbands as the church should submit to the Lord. You're not going to hear that because these are things that are controversial. These are things that might alienate the tithers, the paying churchgoers, right? So the pastor has been handicapped. But before we go deeper into the things, the issues here, and here's the split, because I started off this live by talking about some of the pros. Once again, some of the pros. The fact that kids have a place to go down with parental supervision and sit still and quietly for an hour every week, that in and of itself is a benefit. As someone who has taught classes, I've been a teacher before. I'm not a teacher now, but I've been a teacher. Do you know the discipline that the kids lack? They're unable to sit down for 10 minutes, 15 minutes and listen to a class. Whereas the people who go to church, the kids, not people, the kids, the children that go to church every week, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference because the children who go to church have been taught, they've been trained to sit still. Hey, what does your mom say when you go to church? Hey, sit still. Hey, be quiet. Hey, listen to the pastor. The pastor's talking. Be quiet. Shh. Be quiet. That hour and a half of parental supervision, having the kids sit still, sit quietly, and behave and listen to the leadership, that's something that people who don't go to church, those kids, they totally lack it. And it shows. It shows when those kids go to school. Their inability to sit still and listen and learn shows because they haven't had that type of training. Me personally, before we get into the clip, and I do want to play a clip on this topic, before we get into the clip, I want to explain this. I was born in Atlanta. ATL, shout out ATL. I was born in Atlanta. I was in the Bible Belt, right? My mom, my dad, they had me in church when I was a kid, faithfully. I was raised in the church, in the Bible Belt, right? Right or wrong, I've got some things that, some negative experiences that I experienced while I was in the church. That might be a topic for another day. But what I want to say as far as the bright side is, not only was I raised in the church, I was also, from the age of 5, taught to play chess. I was taught to play chess. And there's another video I talk about the life lessons I've learned from playing chess. 2 things that I've learned from going to church as a kid, number 1, and playing chess as a kid, number 2. When you play chess, you have to sit still. You cannot just touch and move any piece. As soon we have a rule in chess. Anyone who's played chess tournaments knows the rule. There's a rule called you touch, you move. So as soon as you touch a piece, you have to move that piece. So instead of, the first thing I see, let me touch it, and then you realize, oh, that's a bad move. You have to learn to sit still, Keep your hands down. Don't touch the pieces on the board unless you're sure and determined and your decision is final that this is the move you want to go with. So when you're in the church, when you're playing chess, but more so for the purpose of this conversation, when you're in the church, the children, I want to talk about the kids. Kids are being taught you need to sit still. You need to listen. You need to be quiet. These are areas of discipline that now that we see the dwindling of the church, we see that the numbers of churchgoers is going down. We see that kids are not learning these traits. Kids are not learning discipline. Kids are not being influenced by having those parental supervision every week, telling the kid, this is how you sit down. This is how you be quiet. This is how you listen to a teacher or leadership. And not only that, but this is how you build a community of other people, meaning the other families in the church who, just like your kid, those other kids are being raised with the same standards, the same morals, the same principles of we're going to listen to leadership. We're going to listen to the adults. We're going to listen to the people who are more knowledgeable in this area. And until you have the knowledge, until you've volunteered your time, until you've done the study, the self-study to show yourself approved, you need to just be quiet and listen and learn, right? When you go to the church, you're surrounded by families with like minds who are teaching their kids, just as you're teaching your kid, that this is the standard and the type of conduct you should have when you go out into society. Without the church, the black church, and you might say the mosque, if folks out in Philadelphia, the mosque, the religious organizations, these are the good things that the religious organizations have to offer. This family environment where people can come week after week with a sober mind and surround themselves with people with similar philosophies, ideas, and morals on life. Now, when you go to school, your kid is being surrounded by people who are teaching their kids, oh, hey, Timmy, you want to wear a dress? Maybe you're a girl. I thought you were a boy, but you can tell me you're 6, you're old enough. You're 5, you're old enough. You can tell me you're actually a girl, even though I saw you were born with male genitalia. You have XY chromosomes, but you're 5, you're 6, you're old enough to tell me that we made a mistake and you're really a girl. See, when they go into these schools, they're being taught all types of crazy, insane ideologies. And if you are the only voice of reason, you're telling your kid, listen to me, you're a boy whether you like it or not. Listen to me, when you grow up, you're going to be a man. You're going to have man responsibilities. You're going to have to protect and provide your family. You're going to have to sacrifice because you're a man. You're telling your kid that, but as soon as he goes to the school, he's being indoctrinated with all types of counter ideologies that you are the only voice contradicting. Whereas when you go to some of these religious organizations like the Black Church, you're surrounding your kid with other kids who have been taught in a manner similar to the way that you want to raise your kids. You're teaching your kid a man is a man, a woman is a woman. And when you go to these religious organizations, the families that attend are supposed to be teaching their kids the same thing. Right? Right? However, due to Lyndon Baines Johnson's, the Johnson exemption, making churches tax exempt as long as they file as a 501c3 organization, fine. You can go and surround yourself with churches. You can go and surround yourself with like-minded people, but you like-minded people are unable to do anything progressive. You like-minded people are unable to influence your city, your state, your country in any way, in any positive form or manner, because your pastor, the leader of the church, the leader of the congregation, is unable to lead the people in a positive manner and say, hey, you guys need to go out and support X, Y, or Z because they are the ones with the most sane platform. They are the ones who are telling you it's not okay to murder your unborn child. It's not okay to tell 5 and 6-year-old kids that were born as boys that they can put on a dress and act like girls because, hey, it's all the same. There's no right or wrong. Everything is subjective. You're unable to tell, the pastor is unable to direct his congregation to go out and support the people with the platforms to say, hey, we need separate bathrooms. The church, the pastors have been totally handcuffed by the Johnson exemption. Now, this is something that, right or wrong, Donald Trump has tried to address. All right, Donald Trump is trying to address this. All right, so I want to play this clip of Donald Trump addressing the Johnson exemption. Y'all check this out.
It was the great Thomas Jefferson who said, "The God who gave us life gave us liberty." Jefferson asked, can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Among those freedoms is the right to worship according to our own beliefs. That is why I will get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak freely and without fear of retribution. I will do that, remember.
Okay. So when he's saying he wants to get rid of the Johnson Amendment, this is what I was going into with what is he referring to? When he's referring to the Johnson Amendment, he's referring to the 501c3 tax exemption prohibition of political activism within the church. All right. Now that was a very brief clip, but I want to go into this. I want to show a little bit more information here. Donald Trump is promising, I will totally destroy the Johnson Amendment. So the first question I have is, what is the Johnson Amendment? Here, this is coming from NPR. NPR is relatively centrist, liberal-leaning platform. So I would think that they wouldn't be unfair to the Johnson Amendment. So this is the NPR.org explaining the Johnson Amendment in 5 questions. All right. So, in his address to the National Prayer Breakfast on Thursday, President Trump vowed to get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak freely and without fear of retribution. So I thought I had that highlighted for you. All right. Keep going. So I hate these commercials, guys. Hold on. I hate these commercials. Give me 1 second. All right. Some conservative Christian groups will welcome the promise, but many Americans may wonder what Trump was talking about. Here are 5 basic questions that we can answer. Number 1, what is the Johnson Amendment? The Johnson Amendment regulates what tax-exempt organizations, such as churches, can do in the political arena. Under terms of the 1954 legislation, named for its principal sponsor, then Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson, churches and other nonprofit organizations that are exempt from taxation are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. All right. So if you have one candidate saying, hey, we want to teach kids, we want to take the Bible out of schools, we want to forbid prayers in schools, we want to forbid you from reading your Bible or praying in school, but we want to be sure to give gender blocking care to kids. And hey, here's an extra amendment. You don't even have to tell your parents. We will provide children with hormone blockers, and you don't even have to tell your parents. Now, you're not allowed to pray here, but you are allowed to change your gender. You've got one candidate or one political party pushing this ideology. You've got another political party saying, we want to bring prayers. We want to allow, not bring back, but allow. If you want to pray, you're allowed to pray in school. Right? If you want to read your Bible during lunchtime, you're allowed to read your Bible during lunchtime. If you're a boy, you must go to the boys' bathroom. If you're a girl, you must go to the girls' bathroom. As it currently stands, the pastor is not allowed to tell you which one is right. The pastor has to sit back and throw his hands up in defeat and say, hey, I've got no leanings. I've got no political advice for you. I can't tell you that the political party which is promoting gender confusion is wrong, and I can't tell you that the party that is allowing religious groups to pray in school is right. I'm totally indifferent because I've got a 501c3 tax exemption. Well, it looks like Trump is making a stand on this topic. Let's continue. Organizations claiming tax-exempt status cannot collect contributions on behalf of political campaigns or make any statement for or against a political candidate. Now that's important because why? Think about the 60s, right? Think about the 60s when Martin Luther King was organizing the bus boycotts, right? The late 50s, early 60s, when Martin Luther King is organizing his bus boycotts. That would be a political campaign. A boycott is a political campaign. Martin Luther King, under this 501c3 tax exemption, would not be able to go to the different churches in Alabama, in Georgia, in Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Texas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, and tell these folks, hey, we need to pass this collection plate around because we're organizing a bus boycott to bring justice to the South, right? He would not be able to do that because the pastors of those churches would say, hey, I can't let you come in here riling up my congregation. I can't let you come in here passing that collection plate around because the government going to take away my 501c3 tax exemption, and they're going to start taxing me. I'm going to be out of business. I'm going to lose my church, right? So it's not just about the pastor being able to speak on one organization or another, or one campaign or another, one political party or another. It goes down to the political campaigns. Why is it that we don't see the Nation of Islam? Shots fired. Why is it that we don't see the Nation of Islam talking about this reparation movement that we have right now? Shots fired. Because that's a legitimate question. I went to not one, but two rally for reparations in Washington, D.C. Shout out and salute Tariq Nasheed. Tariq Nasheed in 2022 and in 2024 put on his rally for reparations, and Rizza Islam was supposed to go there and talk about reparations. All right. Now he missed Rizza Islam for some reason. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I rock with Rizza. I'm going to give him benefit of the doubt because I rock with Rizza. But for some reason in 2022, Rizza Islam was unable to go to Rally for Reparations. He went in 2024, and let me be honest with you. The talk that he was talking, I wasn't impressed. Hold on, shots fired. Listen, I was not impressed. Now Rizza Islam, that's a brilliant brother. That's a stand-up brother. He's standing on the Nation of Islam. He's doing his thing. I salute Rizza Islam. I salute him. I really do. He brings a lot of good information to the people. In 2020, in the year 2020, when people were debating whether they should go along with the dry run they like to call the jab, right? Taking those shots, right? On my platform, I wasn't rocking with it. I was like, listen, this is a soft run. This is a dry run for the mark of the beast. That's what it is. And I'm not going. Rizza Islam was one of the few who were actually standing on that business talking about, nah, I'm not going either. There's a lot of questions that we should have, legitimate questions that we should have concerning this this experimental jab, this experimental medication that they're trying to force on us, not only as a black community, but as a country and really as a globe. Rizza Islam had a lot of questions about that, and I salute him for standing up on that. But I don't really see a lot of clips of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan speaking about reparations. Now, if you go back and you look at the history of the Nation of Islam, of which I am not a member, full disclosure, I'm not a member, but the Nation of Islam has been preaching since the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been saying we need separation. We need our own land. We need to have our own communities separate from this demonic system. That's what the whole foundation of the Nation of Islam has been, going back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But now that we actually have a legitimate, progressive, momentum building delineation movement, which would include reparations and land grants and give us the ability to separate, just like the Native Americans have their reservations. Now is the time when the Nation of Islam should be the most active. Now is the time when the Nation of Islam could be saying, yeah, we need reparations. We need our land grants. We need our land and reparations so that we're able to separate. That was their whole platform. This should be a layup. This should be an alley-oop. The delineation movement, we're literally tossing up the ball for the Nation of Islam to come and dunk it. Nation of Islam should be all over it. Hey, you see these black folks, they're pushing for reparations. They're pushing for land grants. They're pushing for a way that we can take hold of our own economic system, have our own land, and we can have the ability to separate like we've been claiming, like we've been preaching for all these decades now. Now is the time the Nation of Islam should be the most active. And yet we hear nothing from the Nation of Islam when it comes to the reparations movement. What? Shots fired. Shots fired. Shots fired. Now, am I accusing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan of being pigeonholed to the 501c3 organization? No, not necessarily. I know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is much more progressive than a lot of these local churches. He does speak a lot more politically than do a lot of these local churches. But this is, I've got questions. And this is an open invitation to any members of the Nation of Islam. I am inviting you to a formal, not debate, but conversation. Because as an outsider, as a non-member of the Nation of Islam, I've got questions. I would like to know the Nation of Islam's formal stance on reparations. Now, it might be that Farrakhan is saying, hey, don't speak on this because the reparations movement is a delineation movement where we're talking about foundational black Americans, and Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, is not foundationally black American. So there might be some bias there. I don't know. But I've got questions to anyone in the Nation of Islam to come on. Hey, I would love to do a collaboration video and pick your brain because I've got some questions. As far as why we're not hearing from the Nation of Islam as far as the reparations movement. And not only the Nation of Islam, but even the black churches. The black churches. I know we've got a lot of, especially in the Bible Belt. You're talking about down there in Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Alabama. Come on now. You're telling me there's no black churches who can speak on this topic? Well, thanks to this 501c3 organization tax exempt status, you are not able to make any statement on behalf of a political campaign. You cannot collect contributions on behalf of a political campaign or make statements against any particular party or candidate. All right? You're just unable to. So I've got questions for anyone in the Nation of Islam. That's an open invitation. With that being said, let's get back into this article. Clergy are not allowed to endorse candidates from the pulpit. Despite Trump's promise to totally destroy the amendment, the president does not have the authority to do so on his own. Only Congress can repeal a law, in this case, an amendment to the tax code. They're getting into semantics here. Yeah, Trump can't do that through executive order, but if elected, he's able to direct Congress to put that on his agenda. So that's semantics. It might be true he can't do it through executive order, but if Trump is promising that would be on a campaign promise, that's something that he's running on. I think it's legitimate to say that's one of Trump's policies. Does this prohibit all types of political activity in churches? No. The law is fairly narrow in scope. I disagree. Like I said, this is NPR, and this is a subjective statement. But nonpartisan voter education activities and church organized voter registration drives are legal. So basically, you're allowed to have people, hey, you need to come get registered to vote. But we can't tell you who to vote for. Okay, so how is that useful? How is that useful? You say, oh, it's narrow in scope. You can't tell people which way to vote. We can't organize and tell you, hey, we need to make a voting block. We as evangelicals, Trump is always shouting out the evangelicals. We as a black church need to vote in this particular way because this particular candidate or this particular party is aligning with biblical teachings. The black church isn't allowed to say that. But we're allowed to say, oh, just go vote. For who? Shh. I can't tell you. Shh. All right? And they say that's fairly narrow. That's not narrow. Pastors are free to preach on social and political issues of concern. Not really. Churches can publish issue guides for voters. Let me ask you, when was the last time you saw an issue guide for voters? For all the churchgoers, and I know I've got some churchgoers who watch this video, who watch this channel. When's the last time you got an issues guide for voters? If you've received one, please send it to me. You can email me at ithinkitvids@gmail.com, or you can send it to me on Instagram at frytime_media. I'm open to correction because I don't see churches having any type of political speech. I think that right now they're being silenced not only due to their 501c3 tax exemption status, but also as their fear of upsetting their attendees, their tithers, their payers, which I think is a problem in and of itself. Now, who wants the Johnson Amendment repealed? Though white evangelical Protestants have been active in pushing for the amendment's repeal, other religious groups have been more likely to test its limits. A 2016 study by Pew Research found that black Protestants, mind you, they're saying black Protestants, they're not talking about Catholics, they're not getting into denominations, Baptists, they're just talking about Protestants, which is interesting in and of itself, have been more likely than other Christian groups to report having heard their clergy speak out against the clear merits or faults of any particular candidate. The study found that 28% of black Protestants heard their clergy speak in support of Hillary Clinton in the 2016 campaign, while about 1 in 5, which would be 20% of black Protestants, said they had heard their ministers denounce Donald Trump. So 25%. That's what we're supposed to be proud of. 25%. We went from the 60s and prior to the 60s, prior to the implementation of this 501c3 tax exemption, we saw that churches were active in organizing the community for social change. The entire civil rights movement was built on the backs of the black church. True or false? Leave it in the comment section. That's true or is false. The entire civil rights movement was built on the back of churchgoers, the black church. Huh? And what have we seen since then? Silence. Nothing. Nada. Zip zero. Stingy with De Niro. And they're saying by comparison, just 4% of white evangelicals reported having heard the clergy speak in favor of a presidential candidate. 7% heard their clergy speak against a candidate, mostly Clinton. So the churches have been silenced. Is this just about free speech for churches and pastors? No, it's about money and politics. And this is one more thing I wanted to highlight before we get into some closing thoughts. This is about money and politics. Conservative groups that favor a greater role for religion in the public space, such as the Alliance Defending Freedom, have long sought to repeal the amendment, arguing that it restricts free speech by censoring the content of a pastor's sermon. Overturning the law, however, would also have major implications for campaign finance. If churches or clergy are allowed to participate in campaigns, tax-free donations to the church could go to support a political candidate. Religious organizations could become bigger money players in politics. Good. That's a good thing. We need to reinvigorize the church, because if anyone needs to have more of a political say, it's the folks that go to church. Let me say that. And shout out to this article. That I think I got my point across from that article. But let's get into this. If there's anybody that needs to be more politically active, it's the people that go to church. You know, I made this comment, I made this statement before, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. The people that go to church are the last ones you really got to worry about. You see, Trump prided himself on the fact that he gave felons the right to vote. Down there in Florida, I believe they were having, when I was in law school at least, they were having a big push to allow, because I went to school down in Florida, law school down in Florida. When I was in law school, they were pushing to give felons, ex-felons that have gotten out of prison, the right to vote. And that's good. I think that ex-felons do deserve the right to vote because they've already paid their debt to society. They've done their time. So once they've gotten out of prison, I think that they should enjoy the right to vote, and that they have a needed voice. But the people that really need the most voice right now are the people that go to church. The people that go to church are usually not the crime breakers. All right, the people that go to church, if you're going to church every week, I'm not too worried about you sneaking up behind me, hitting me across my head and trying to take my book bag. I'm not really worried about you breaking into my car when I go to sleep and trying to take out whatever I got left in my car, trying to steal my radio, trying to steal my hubcaps off my car. You going to church every week, I'm not worried about you kicking my door in when I go to work at 9 to 5 and you know I'm at work. So you kicking in my door trying to take out my computer, take out my TV. You go to church every week, you're probably a little bit more disciplined than the average person, than the average non-church goer. You probably are the type of person who believes in the differences between men and women. You probably believe that there is a God, meaning there's somebody that can judge you, that can see you do right and wrong, even when nobody else can see. There's value in that. I trust people who believe in God way more than I trust people who don't believe in God. Because the people that don't believe in God, I have to think in my head, well, listen, if they can get over on me, they in their own mind don't believe that there's going to be any consequences for that. If they rob me tonight, they don't believe that there's a God who's going to judge them tomorrow. They don't believe that they need to repent. They need to think twice about that. But the type of person that's going to church every week, they're going to think twice before just robbing somebody. They're going to think twice before, deceiving people and leading people astray, bearing false witness, right? I tend to trust people who believe in God. Not only people who believe in God, but the people who have the discipline to wake up, because mind you, church is usually in the morning. I'm talking about 9:30 in the morning, you might have a church service. 10:30 in the morning, you might have a church service. The people who are going out, getting drunk on Friday and Saturday night, they're usually not getting up and going to church in the morning. It's the people who have the discipline to put down the alcohol on Saturday. The people who have the ability to stay sober, wake up and stay sober. They don't have to, as soon as they wake up, they're reaching for a blunt trying to get high. The people who have the discipline to stay sober-minded and go and surround themselves with other people who are sober-minded and surround themselves with people who have the ability to hold them accountable for not living up to the standards that other people, that God, not other people, that God have set. Those are the people that this society needs to hear from the most. Because right now, if you ask me, the people that are leading these political parties, these are some godless heathens. The people that's pushing, telling children 5, 6 years old that you can change your gender and it's subjective. There is no right or wrong. These are some godless heathens telling your kids that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. These are some godless heathens. Let's make no mistake about it. These are some godless heathens that are teaching your children that there's no such thing as right or wrong and everything is subjective. What I want to see the churchgoers get active. I want to see the pastor tell their congregation, hey, there is a God who's going to judge you, and there is a candidate that we should support whose policies most align with biblical principles. But hey, that's just what I think. Listen, if you made it this far, if I spurred any thought, if I made you think twice about anything, if you found this conversation interesting, be sure to hit the thumbs up button to support us in the algorithm. Listen, man, it's free. It's free. If you made it this far, you found the conversation interesting, hit the thumbs up button. Give me a like. It's free, man. Also, if it's your first time watching or you haven't done so already, smash the subscribe button for content just like this. I talk about a wide range of topics from news, politics, current events. We talk about religion here. We talk about, Transformers. We talk about a lot of controversial topics. Some things you might agree with, some things you might not agree with. So be sure to check this out. And you can always leave it in the comments section. If I said something that you disagree with, I'll read all my comments. So salute to G-Rap. He's saying, hey, I was spitting tonight. So salute G-Rap. Salute G-Rap. Listen, guys, that's going to be it for tonight's video. I appreciate everyone who's rocking with me. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. And guess what? I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up. It ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up. It ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man. It ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man. It ain't no stopping me. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up. It ain't no stopping me. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man. It ain't no stopping me. Got bands, I'ma run it up. It ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands up in hand and made like 5 bands a day. I was broke, came up with a plan, now I'm the man. It ain't no stopping me. I done ran up all these bands up in hand and made like 5 bands a day.